Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from Internet Partnership Radio and PodWeather.com with the latest on the tropics. And this evening, taking a look out there, we have a few features that we're going to touch on. We have this large area associated with Invest 93L, which extends all the way from the Grenadines through the Windward Islands, all the way up through the U.S. Virgin Islands, all the way to the southern Bahamas, western Cuba, and the Caymans. Included in that is Jamaica, eastern Cuba, Hispaniola, and Puerto Rico getting rainfall, and that is the main threat as of now. But the area we're watching for development with this invest is right in this region here, south and west of the island of Jamaica, heading off generally in a west to west-northwest direction over the next several days. We're going to talk about this quite a lot. We also have Tropical Storm Darby, and he's sitting south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec, and it's actually forecast to kind of curve back close enough to the coast to keep people on edge and definitely bring high surf. Almost a hurricane, by the way. Off the screen, you can see this cloud here blowing off from our major hurricane Celia, and we also have a few waves out there that I'll touch on. Also note the line of thunderstorms across the middle of the country definitely blowing up on the infrared satellite. Now here's the latest model guidance on Tropical Invest number 93, and right now it's looking as though they're initializing it down here towards, say, 16 north and about, I'd say about 77 west, although it may be a little bit further to the north than that, maybe a little bit east, a little bit west. There's not really a definitive circulation yet, so it's hard to pinpoint, but you can see generally the consensus with this gray line up here is towards the Yucatan Peninsula in about 3 days, making landfall, and then leaving the Yucatan and heading up towards the north-central Gulf Coast. We have the HWRF model in here, which keeps the system weak, but actually at the end brings it down to 983 millibars, which by most accounts would be a pretty decent Category 1 hurricane, and it kind of takes it up here and stops it dead in its tracks and then slingshot right up towards the Gulf Coast. That would be an unusual track, no doubt. The GFDL is a lot stronger with it, does make it a hurricane, even a powerful hurricane, and heads up towards Louisiana as well as the Canadian model. The BAMs are down here towards staying over land or just briefly moving out over the area of the Bay of Campeche. Right now the current motion, if extrapolated through 5 days, would have it making landfall in about 3 or 4 days north of Tampico and south of the Texas border. Right now, the consensus, as mentioned before, is for a movement generally west-northwest with a gradual bend north. Right now, it's far too early. We don't even have a center yet, but if you live in Louisiana and potentially Texas, you'd want to watch this probably most carefully, as well as Mexico. But again, anybody who could be affected. And this includes the west coast of Florida. This does include Florida. Don't think that some of these models haven't been trying to hook it back that way. There's been a lot of speculation with that, but we need a system first. And that's the most important thing. Once we have that, we could tell where things may go from there. There's the latest satellite imagery of the entire Caribbean, and you can see as it gets towards nighttime out there, there are definitely thunderstorms blowing up. Another look at the RGB image, showing the beautiful sunset there. Look at the way the sun hits the water down there in the Caribbean Sea, continuing off towards the west-northwest, this entire area. But again, the feature we're focused on is right in here. Right in here does appear to be our problem spot. Let's take a look a little bit closer at the visible. I sped this up to try and show you what they're trying to see at the Hurricane Center, and it's right in here that there does appear to be a little bit, see that right there, a little bit of a spin trying to get going here. And this is far to the west of where most of the heavy thunderstorms are, but if this does get going, under the environment it'll be in, a hurricane down the line cannot be ruled out. So you need to watch this very, very carefully, because honestly, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot to stop it from becoming a hurricane once it gets going. It needs to form an inner core first, which means we need a well-defined circulation center. Now here's the area of the wind shear, and you can see an anticyclone. That's anticyclone because it's spinning the opposite direction of what we see in this basin with cyclones. It's spinning clockwise. Obviously, we're trying to get a counterclockwise circulation. If that happens right under where this is, that would be a perfect ventilation for the system. There would be no wind shear to speak of, an absolute ideal environment wind shear wise, and of course you know the waters are boiling out there, especially if this baby heads towards the North Gulf Coast where we have waters the upper 90s, not to even be impacted by the oil spill, which has caused waters to even increase a little bit in temperature. But again, right now there is still 30 to 40 knots of wind shear, but you're actually starting to lose some of the stronger shear. In fact, I can't even find 40 on this map unless it's way out here where the system is and is. You can see 20, 30, 30 knots, and then lower wind shear values over Florida and the Gulf, and of course where our system's trying to get going. So overall, wind shear is not a problem. Water temperatures aren't a problem. Look at this. You can see the moisture quite obviously. There's no problem with that. So what's this problem? Getting the circulation. Once it gets the circulation, then we've got problems. And that's the honest truth there. Now, further out in the Atlantic, there's a tropical wave, a monster wave leaving Africa. Look at these grays showing up on satellite. Very impressive. This will have to be watched because obviously the wave that we're watching now was in part interacting with a wave that moved off Africa. Even though it's early, we're getting towards July, and with the increased activity this year, we will no doubt have to watch these waves even closer. As a matter of fact, the long-range GFS has been showing on and off, not as much today as yesterday, a hurricane, a Cape Verde hurricane, even two hurricanes within about 2 weeks taking aim at the Lesser Antilles and perhaps the Bahamas. But again, that's a far way out to have to worry about anything. Now, looking out in the eastern Pacific, we do have Hurricane Celia as of 5 p.m. It was at 12.3 north, 110.4 west, way out there. Winds were 115 miles per hour, gusting to 140. It's moving west at 12, even a little bit south of west if you look at the latest loop, which I'll show you, 963 millibars. And it is forecast by the National Hurricane Center to actually become a Category 4 hurricane briefly of about 135 miles an hour and then start to weaken, and by Monday still be around as a tropical storm, even a hurricane over the weekend still, but definitely moving out and weakening. Taking a look at Celia right now on the satellite imagery, you can definitely see this is a well-organized hurricane with the eye embedded within a CDO, that's the central dense overcast, with convection bursting there. Earlier on, you could have seen better down the eye, but it was still curling up. It still has had trouble trying to get a well-defined eye to pop out, but definitely it's been doing that. Also notice that little bit of southward motion there. It almost looks like the eye's taking a little dive there towards 12 north, but again, a general westerly component is expected over the next few days, but nobody's going to really have to deal with Celia. Now, Darby, he may be a different story here. As of 5 p.m., Tropical Storm Darby was located at 12.0 north, 96.1 west. Winds were up to 65 miles per hour, gusting to hurricane strength, moving west-northwest at 11, 995 millibars. And it is forecast to become a hurricane and then a Cat 2 as it curls on back. And to be honest with you right now, it could be dangerously close to the coast of Mexico, and it could even become a major hurricane. Look at that. Look at that thunderstorm blowing up there, the eye developing right in here. A tiny storm, a tiny developing hurricane. But nevertheless, when you get these tiny ones, they could spin up very fast and also spin down very fast. So a major hurricane with Darby would not be out of the surprise, but if it fell apart quick, wouldn't be too much of a surprise either. But definitely a nice, tiny little storm, but a potential threat to Mexico, no doubt about that. So that'll do it this time for the Tropical Update. I'm Mike Naso from IPR. I'll see you next time.